All right, everybody, welcome back. We're back with a break. A break? Where we had a break, and now we're back for the break before another break.
Back
We,
from the break to the break for the break.
um, you know, we Grant had a great idea a couple weeks ago about just talking things out because we need to talk about things that we really like, and this show just kind of spawned up out of all that, and was able to find a catchy enough name. And we had such a good discussion last week. I thought it would be fun to carry over into this week and talk about something that we sort of ended on in the previous episode where we discussed time travel a little bit and how it seemed to me that in the last episode we kind of agreed that time travel is one of our favorite like genres of sci-fi, if that, I guess, if that's or a subset
Yes,
of
so
sci-fi.
I guess you'd say subgenre subset. It's
Mhm.
probably what I'd call it. But yeah, for me, it's a unique storytelling device. Depending on the rules that you set within your own universe of time travel.
Mhm. Well, what do you like? I mean, there's a lot that people. I don't know. What, I guess for you, I guess start with you. Like, what is it that you like so much about it? Like, is there? I mean, you could point to something specific, or you could just speak in general. But what is it? What is something that you really like about time travel in
Uh,
storytelling?
as a concept, I always enjoy the idea of uh, the next form of great exploration. Um, Not so much huge fan of fantasy films, let's just say. But if there was someone that was from the future that traveled back in time and it was in the fantasy settings, the fish out of water sort of scenario, I quite enjoy that.
Hmm.
I also like the idea of, uh, as I said, establishing the rules, what can be bent, what can be broken, what can't be, and why. Because I think the idea of time travel as an actual science is hugely fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and maybe it probably come from my earliest memory of time travel would probably be, I don't know if it was Back to the Future. I think it might have been the Time Machine. There was an old BBC style production. I
Yeah.
can't even remember who was in it. Um, Travels to the Future, a bunch of Morlocks and everything like that. It was like a dystopian sort of thing. And then
Yeah.
I saw Back to the Future, and when they went to the future, it was all sunny and bright and everything, and it was, you know, two different stories using the same exact thing, a time machine.
Right.
But
If
yeah,
you
using different science.
if you were to, if time travel were real, how do you think the science would actually work behind it? Do you think it would be something like, if we were to go back in time, you would create branching realities from that? Or do you think it's one of those things where you could meddle how you wanted as long as you didn't interfere, like,
Well, that's the thing. By automatically going back in time, you have interfered, unless you subscribe to the theory of a predestination. So you always went back. So therefore, every action that you do, no matter what it is, has already happened.
mhm,
Therefore, you can't change anything, and then that brings in the idea of free will.
right. Ooh,
So
yeah.
if you were to go back in time, like if we can use some movie examples, like Back to the Future is one of those ones that people like to bring up, but there is also some huge horrific implications. And if Back to the Future, like at the end of the Back to the Future, what happens when he goes back to his timeline? Can you remember?
The Yeah, his parents are not like these meek, like broken couple. They're like madly in love and very wealthy, and George learns to actually defend himself. And then he gets that fancy new truck and stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But then if you look at the aspect of time travel, which is usually the underlook, which is the unforeseen circumstances. Marty's now going to grow up with a bunch of people that he doesn't know. He doesn't know those people. Those aren't his parents. More importantly, what happened to current day Marty in that timeline.
Oh,
He wasn't
yeah,
there. And then if you look at it this way, okay, if you subscribe to the theory that when you go back in time or change time, it branches off. So we now have a reality where Doc Brown is dead, Marty
right.
McFly is missing, and there's a bunch of Lebanese terrorists that crashed their van. Or Lebanon, yeah, I think it was, yeah, terrorists
Yep.
that crashed the van. That whole town is now completely changed. The mother, who was a raging alcoholic, she's probably going to drink herself to death now. Her younger son's gone. Like the huge horrific ramifications of the storytelling, and that's what I like about the time travel stories, because it branches off. And if you can write something that's clever enough or smart enough, um, or even just something as simple enough, you can tell really unique stories. And the best part about time travel being a subgenre, it can work for anything, whether it's romance, action, sci-fi, horror.
Right.
It works for all of those as that subgenre.
You know, it's funny. I was going to mention like I haven't seen this movie in a while, but I thought it was a really interesting use of time travel was the movie The Lake House with I think it was Sandra
Uh,
Bullock and Keanu
Sandra Bullock
Reeves.
and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, where they're communicating through the letter in the mailbox.
Yep.
That goes essentially back in time. And I just thought that was interesting because you saying like, oh, it can work for romance, and it totally, in that way, it is science fiction, but it's not. I mean, it is in some way, but you wouldn't market that movie as a science fiction movie. You would market it as a romance.
No. So Time Traveler's Wife, another prime example. It's a pure love story told through different times. Each time that they see each other, they're a different age. One's going forward, one's going backwards. They did the same thing in Doctor Who,
Yep.
with the person that he ends up marrying, River Song.
Mhm.
Um, so there's always room for interpretation, and like the letterbox sort of thing. Those are the genre of mysterious object time travel. So you
Yep.
got stuff like that. You got a hot tub time machine. Certain things like even to a sense, the movie Click with Adam
Yeah.
Sandler in it. Yeah, that's a time travel machine. He's
Yep.
got a crazy device. It's not a machine that punches through it. It's some miraculous sort of thing that happens um, with it. And yes, the ability to tell stories. And I think as an editor, I like the idea of taking something that exists, changing pieces around and redoing it. So a revised sort of history.
Yeah.
As much as if we were to talk about a TV series or anything, recasting everyone and doing everything like that, we wouldn't like that, because
Right.
it's what we got used to. But as within a world, it makes perfect sense that can happen.
Yeah.
You go back 40 years, you like the amount of things that you could do, like the butterfly effect. Not just the film, which technically is also a time travel film. Um, I like that idea, that one small thing, because I can remember weird times. Like there's a band that I really liked, and the only way that I got to that band is I was sitting on a bench one time, um, and I saw a bus go past with a radio station. I turned the radio station on. I heard this song. I went, "That's a cool song." That wasn't the band that I was after. I went home and downloaded that song, and while I was waiting, I listened to their album on YouTube. That
Mhm.
album finished. The next one come on, and all of a sudden, I've heard this guy called Hobson, and I've listened to him ever since then. But
Yeah.
that was all because I sat down on that bench. That bus went past. Any one of those things that changed, I'd probably never heard that artist, even though they don't seem like they're directly connected. And I love the
So
idea of changing one thing just to see where the pattern is.
so here's an interesting question then. So if if time travel is like is time travel just essentially like science's way of pinpointing different alternate realities and transporting people back to them? Because if it's true that we just live uh, in a universe that has infinite realities stacked on top of each other, I mean, there's something for everything. There's something that we didn't do this stream tonight. or we started the stream and then 5 minutes in we cut it out and then we started doing something else. Is time travel just like futuristic technology that uses like AI to pinpoint moments in space time and then to transport people back that way?
I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Stuff for the future potentially, but in the past, no, because we've already got a record and we know when that happens. It's not like we can go back to something that wasn't there, because you'd have
Right.
to have a direct line to it. But if we were to go back in time and then come back to the present time, it could very well have deviated based purely and simply on the travel itself. Because if no one had ever traveled to the past, say to 1999, no one had ever done, and you're the first person to do that, even if you did it for a split second, that world has now fundamentally changed, because up until that point, time travel never existed, and there was no practical application. Whether it has huge ramifications on the world is one thing, but going back in time and then coming back, for me, is one thing I would never do. I'd
Really?
never go backwards and then come forward, um, because I believe that once you go back and you change something, you can't come back to that same line. It's a deviated branch, which
Hmm.
means that if I was to hop in a time machine now, like say for instance we're talking right now, and I say I'll be back in a minute, I'll go in there, I'll jump, I'll come out, and I'm in the reality where I'm talking to you. But in this current one right here, right now, I disappear and I don't come back.
Yeah, that'd be weird. That'd be scary.
And I couldn't do that to my family. I couldn't, yeah, like my kids especially. Like, and the worst part about it is having that sort of belief and mentality of time travel, where it's an exact copy of my daughter
Hmm.
or my son, and I'm looking at them. I know that's not them, even though everything about them looks exactly the same. But it wasn't the version that I left. It's a version,
Yeah,
because the version that I left, that time travel never happened yet.
that was one thing that scared the crap out of me in like the so I used to love the show Sliders.
Hmm.
And at one point they go to an alternate reality and they find copies of themselves that are very very similar, except in this one Professor Arturo was like bad. Um,
Yeah.
and I think in the show they essentially say they allude to the fact that they took the wrong one with them. And he was like, and that scared me because I just thought, oh my god, like, can you imagine like finding that variation of, and now we're getting into like parallel universes, but like, just like to your point, like finding or coming back to a place where like, is this really, if you went back in time then came forward again, even if the person looked exactly the same, like how would you know? And how would you know you didn't just abandon your family on another
Yeah.
branch timeline
That
like
that's
that?
that's 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 the thing with it. Like, um, and there's people who have the belief that, well, if I've traveled in the past, therefore this had to have already happened. But then
Right.
that takes the free will action out of it. If I know that, or there's the ones that people look at where no matter what you do, history is like an elastic band. You can stretch it, but it'll always come back to what it was. You can go
Right.
and change something in the past, but time is elastic. What's happened will always happen. If I stop someone from dying by pushing them out of the way of a car, they're still going to die.
Right.
I might push them out of the way and they smash their head on the ground, because time wants to uh, time doesn't want to change,
Well, what is
assuming
that?
that time is an entity of that, because, well, technically not time, space time, I should say. So because
Right.
it's affected by gravity and everything as well. That's why those that are in the space station, they age. I think it's like 100 thousandths of a second less per year than we do.
Well, it's also
because they're traveling at a faster speed.
right. The well, it's also what those movies, like the Final Destination movies, did with is like in a sense they made space time a living, breathing entity because that's what it's about. Is like no matter what you do, like even if you knew, so this isn't like again, it's not necessarily a space travel or time travel movie, but they do use it a simplistic version of time travel as a way to premonition that you could see into the future far enough to witness your own death. But like you said, time can be stretched, but essentially it eventually will snap back. And even nobody cheats death essentially. um, and
So
that's another thing.
do you not think they're time travel? You think they're precognitive versus time travel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar, because you're not. And this kind of brings in like mind, body, spirit type things, like can you project yourself forward? Like I guess it's a form of time travel, premonition. You're not actually staying there. Your consciousness has moved forward. So I mean, yes, it is, but I wouldn't call the Final Destination movies time travel movies.
Oh no, I wouldn't call them time, but I think they have an element of just before their death they travel back. I don't think they're seeing a vision because they're feeling it, they're smelling it, they're tasting it. They're
Oh,
all those senses are there. I believe that whatever the entity is pulling them back to that moment.
that's a good point. I never thought of it that way. Um, that's why, like, so let me ask you this: what movie? What do you think is a movie that does time travel poorly? Um, I'm sure there's plenty, but was there one that sticks out in your head that you're just like, oh,
I've always got to go back to the future. The second one in particular.
okay, explain.
They establish what happens is when you go back in time, you change something, and then you go forward, you're in an alternate reality. Yet Biff, when he went back in time, old Biff went back in time, he gave young Biff the almanac, and then went back to the real timeline and left his cane in the sink. So when he took the DeLorean, that DeLorean should have been gone because he went back in time, changed history, and then would have came back to the alternate one.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. um.
Because they established what happens. You go back, you change it, you go forward. It's the alternate reality. Except
Right.
when he changed it for a massive way. It didn't do it. Yet when Marty traveled, it was big.
Right. He moved. Yeah. He went to a completely different place.
Yeah,
Essentially. Yeah. Um. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I don't know. And we revere those movies as like some of the best time travel movies. They're certainly very entertaining and very well made. But yeah, that's one of those things that's like once you realize it's there, you're like, oh, I can't unsee that now, and it kind of ruins the whole thing.
yeah,
um, we were talking last week about the show Outer Range,
yeah,
um, the Amazon show, and the more I thought about that, the more I realized like this is like one of those like okay, they've established that it's like there's time travel involved here, but the rules seem pretty flimsy, and it was just one that I liked many elements of this show, but then when I started thinking about the time travel aspect, I just thought, well, what are the rules behind this? Like nobody really knows. Uh,
yeah,
like what's affected? Like you go through the hole and you go through the hole again, and then we were talking about the sheriff who just walked into a time warp. There was no like she didn't cross any like event horizon or anything. She's just all of a sudden standing, amongst or just outside of this tribe, Native American tribe. Uh, but the only thing I can think of is that this guy's property that she was on was some sort of gateway. But again, there's nothing that
yeah.
she crosses to get
The
there.
mysterious object. The
Right.
hole itself has shown that it's only moves you forward.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know because remember the body was pushed in there, and then it came back, and we know Roland's character goes in and then comes back
Right.
to the time, but he didn't do that when he initially did it. When he went wandering in 1870 or whatever it was, he said that he was from.
Yep.
Um, So it's an interesting thing because the problem with that is until you set up the rules, you don't know what works and what doesn't work. Prime example of a movie that sets up the rules and follows their rules almost to a T is the movie Primer.
I
But
don't know if I've seen that.
okay, two friends build a time machine in a storage shed. And they're trying to sell. One's trying to sell it off, and the other one doesn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is they each use it individually at different times and go back and move around. So you've got multiple copies of them going around, so you don't know who's who at what time. It's a little convoluted with it, and it's a good solid film because it's character driven, and I think that's what a lot of the time travel ones need.
Yep.
But yeah, like most of them that don't involve like science have very loose rules, like the black hole in that one. Have you seen Dark?
No, man.
Oh, dude, you
You've
should see
told me
Dark.
about this. I think
Yeah,
between you and Lofty, I think you're both of you said like you need to watch this show because it's so good.
yeah. It's to say it's the best time travel show. I don't know if that would be accurate, but I can't think at the moment of something that I would consider a time travel show that was better.
Okay.
Um, they'll it's once again it's a I'll give you the quick premise of the story.
Okay.
Bunch of kids were hanging out at school, and they go into a cave, and a little brother goes missing. The guy's little brother goes missing, and then they've got to find it. Um, Starts off like a normal missing person, sort of almost like a procedural sort of thing. There's weird anomalies happening with lights going on, things floating around, and it's very like almost Stranger Things esque type sort
Okay.
of thing. It's a German series, um, but the way in which it deals with time travel, which isn't technically really introduced to like the third or fourth episode, it's hinted at.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it has the most convoluted family tree I've ever seen, but it makes sense. It's good storytelling. Um, Character motivations make sense. And then there's a little twist when it comes to the time travel element itself, which I won't spoil because it is a huge part of it. It's only 3 seasons.
Okay.
I think like it's on Netflix. If you've got Netflix, it's worth the watch. I
Okay.
watched it in uh the German with the English subtitles. Some people like to watch it with the English um dub over the top. It doesn't when you watch it with the English dub, it doesn't actually take all that long for you to uh adjust to it.
Okay.
It was actually surprising how easy it was, but that's a prime example of a mysterious object um pushing the entire storyline
Okay.
of time travel and using time travel as the element of the story, not as the crux.
All right. Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna watch that because I've been looking for something new. There's a couple of new things that I want to check out, but that now that you mention it again, I'm gonna grab my pen. Um, I was just thinking of other shows that do time. I think it's really hard to do time travel right. I think
Yeah.
very few do it like real justice. I think there's a lot of entertaining movies out there that do fairly well. Like one that came to mind was was Deja Vu with Denzel Washington. Um, I think it was. I mean, it was a very entertaining and fun movie, and the whole car chase scene with them able to like use the technology to as like a camera to like look back in
Yeah.
time through that lens was a really cool idea. Again, I think it sort of abandons logic at many points, but um, you know, as far as entertainment goes, it was like it was enough of a break from reality to be like, oh, okay, like I'll just this works, and I hope they find the
Yeah.
girl. But even something like but in a similar vein, the movie Source Code, which
I was
was
literally just about to bring up source code as like what that's one of those ones where as soon as you said using the technology, that's the one that I go to.
yeah, because even that one, like I feel like that's more of a place that I almost see like the world going, is being able to tap into someone's memories that way, to go back and relive moments, like when they're just essentially a vegetable.
Yeah, like is that time travel? Is that I still don't know. That's the thing. I don't
Yeah.
know what that like. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Well, and also something that in that like when you're in someone's mind, like we know that eyewitness testimony is
Mm.
flimsy at best, usually not reliable and not permissible in court. So how would that affect something like this? And it would be an interesting like plot device too, to use as like a, like, because you're inside someone's head, each variation would be a little bit different, because your mind like sees things differently. Some they see it sees a green shirt, but it
Yeah,
processes it as blue. Like how could you alter the setting to maybe help you, or it might distract you at some points.
Nolan touched on that a little bit with Inception.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
Mm. Instead of memories, it was dreams and your sort of thing. Like,
Inception is one of those that it's what I think I talked about this last week, but it's a movie that I absolutely love. And even though people say, "Oh, it's not that good of a movie," I just think you're crazy, because I think it's beautifully done. And I don't know if you've seen like the YouTube videos of people like splicing together all the different levels of
yeah, I was
of the
literally about to say,
heist.
have you seen those ones where you've got the four of them, where you've got the kick happening in the bathtub, and then you've got the whole underground snow scene, and then you got the next one, then you got the Joseph Gordon-Levitt's fight scene.
Yep. And then down into uh what is that place
Limbo.
called, Limbo, like all of those running simultaneously at the different speeds to match everything. Yo, dude, absolutely, when that came out, when I first saw that video, I was like, oh my god, someone finally did it. And that's why that movie is so masterfully done, because I think it's one of his best, if it not the best, of how he tells a story. Uh, Largely because of how it ends, not really knowing. Well, nothing explicitly explained. Like, did he wake up? Is he really back?
Well, it's the thing of it is that's not his object. That was her object.
Right, right,
So even if it doesn't move, even if it does do the things, we still don't know.
right. Well, there was one clue that people talk about, and it's so they do talk about the ring that he's wearing. So his totem
Yeah,
is his ring. And if you look, there's been there's a few breakdowns I've seen of this, where when he's dreaming, he's wearing his wedding ring, and when he's awake, is his wedding ring is gone. So the at the very very end, there as he's going through like security and everything, there's a moment where you can see his left hand, and he's not wearing his ring. Um, but again, this is not. He never says that he's awake or asleep or whatever, or did he finally wake up, or is he still in limbo? But people are piecing together these clues along the way, and like again, it's what makes this movie so good. Um, and I could see why it equally is frustrating for people to watch. Um,
yeah, and I think that's. I mean, that's. Well, it's not like we can even go and ask Nolan on Twitter because he doesn't have anything like that. But yeah,
right.
um, but yeah, like that's the power of his storytelling with that. Like, it gives you enough breadcrumbs that you can enjoy the film afterwards and think
Yeah.
about it. And unfortunately, we don't get that with the the stuff that we like. essentially, like the comic books, the pop culture sort of things. We don't really get that. We get a very what's the word I'm looking for? Surface level. We don't go below the first dream sequence, essentially.
Yeah. It's too.
Last
Go ahead.
week I was talking about the director of Eternal Sunshine did another film similar to that. It's The Science of Sleep. It's another one that if you haven't seen that one,
The Science of Sleep. No, I haven't.
yeah,
But I'm gonna look it up right now.
yeah, it's another Godry one. So
Who's in this? Gael
not a lot of
Garcia
people that
Bernal.
yeah.
I know him. And Charlotte Gainsbourg. I don't know her. Oh wait, I do know her face.
Yeah, it's French.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's what year is this made? It looks older. That's for sure. 2006. Wow, isn't it funny? Like things from 2006. I'm like, oh man, that looks old.
Well, if
Yeah,
you
I'll have
were
to check it out.
if you started school in 2006, you would have already graduated. Easiest way of looking at it.
Oh my god, what? It's so weird. It's so weird to think. Am I coming through okay on my mic and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can't really see much of you because it's just a face with a beard, but and black background. But it's more than what I've got. So
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know. I hope we get some more cool like time travel-y stuff. I just like you said, a lot of the stuff that seems to come out now is like very, very surface level. And there's not a whole lot of depth to it, which I understand not every movie is going to be that. But you know, it would be nice to get like even something fun like Groundhog Day. It'd be fun to get like a cool like
yeah.
movie like that again.
Well, there you go. So that's essentially a time loop.
Right.
Another mysterious object we don't know about what makes it, what happens. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are pretty simple that we know. Keep repeating until it doesn't.
Which is
So
yeah.
as I said, you can tell a great story with a very simple premise.
Do you have well, I mean, I guess did you share your favorite your favorite time travel movie? I don't remember if you did last week or if you have this week. I don't think you did yet this week.
My favorite.
Well, remember, there's
No,
two. So you said last week, and I think other people have said, there's a difference between your favorite and the best.
best, yeah.
So I don't know if you have an idea of what those two are, but it is kind of on the spot because I didn't ask you this prior to the show.
I was thinking about this morning, and I honestly don't know because usually favorites are ones that are like you can have a bit of fun with. So something like a Hot Tub Time Machine, it is a fun movie, but I don't think it's necessarily a good time travel film because it's just about a singular trip and a return. So kind of like what Back to the Future 1 was, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do love the original Back to the Future. As weird and as flawed as it is, it's probably where I got my love of time travel from, because I did watch it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I
King
don't
has
know,
a good
because
question.
all right.
Here. What is the perfect time travel story for you guys? What ticks all the boxes? Continuity, wacky, crazy, all over the place, and time.
Yeah. Well, continuity is a key with time. It's one of the only few genres where if you set a rule up, you can't break it. It just otherwise the whole premise doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
what ticks all the boxes is that it has to be a big change. There has to be a way to either fix it or deal with or deal with it. And there has to be actual consequences. Because if we take it back to the Future, all that time meddling had zero consequences for Marty, because the way in which it's perceived is he got everything he wants. He got the girl, he got the truck. His family is super wealthy, but somehow still live in that same shithole. Everything that he ever wanted, he got. There was no downside to it. I think consequences are a huge, huge thing that need to be in there, and also a uniqueness. If you got something that's something unique, the TV series Timeless had a thing where they would keep the hard drives of the place that they were time traveling from in there, because inside the time machine kept the original stuff. So if people had photographs and necklaces and everything that they wanted to keep because they're going to go back in time, they're afraid it's going to get erased.
Mm-hmm.
They keep it in this essentially pocket dimension, and that doesn't change because that was traveling with them. I like that idea. Like where Back to the Future had the photograph that changed.
Yep.
The whole. Would you have even taken the photograph then? Like there's so many different layers to that, and I think if you can get something that ticks a few of those boxes for me, that would be the perfect type of time travel movie. And just for the sake of it, because I'm a narcissist, throw in a twist that I never saw coming. So,
well, I guess I would answer this question because this is hard. It's a hard question to ask. And even the best movie, the movie that I'll mention, and I think we've talked about it on one of these shows, is Interstellar. I think it does a fantastic job of, I mean, it's not a time travel movie in that like it's used to like, I mean, it is something that happens within the movie based on their proximity to black hole. But they understand like the consequences of meddling with, like, in order to save humanity and essentially lose his entire family, he needs to navigate to these places. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a cop out answer or not, but I think this movie does it really well. Where it could have done the thing where he goes into the Tesseract and comes out, days before, or immediately after leaving or something like that, and saves the whole planet. But instead, what happens is he is left, alone. Essentially, his, he's brought to a place that he's essentially becomes the fish out of water. And then there's still a mission to be done after that, but it ends with him being in a place that he is totally alien to and has no idea what to expect. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a cop out answer, but I feel like it's as close as we can get to perfection when it comes to using time travel in our movies.
I like that. Yeah, I get it, because it's not a device. It's technically it's time travel within a different sense. It's a pure scientific thing, just traveling either fast enough to do it, or being to something that's got a huge gravity pull.
Yeah.
Um, Flight of the Navigator. I love that as a kid.
I don't think I've seen that either. I
Yeah,
have a list of movies I got to watch.
yeah, I think that's another cool one. But yeah, it all boils down to what time travel stories you like. I love listening to they're not exactly creepy pastas, but they're essentially like um, tales with consequences, and that on YouTube. There's so many time travel short stories,
Mm-hmm.
just to see everyone's different interpretation. Um,
There's actually the story I'm writing meddles with time travel in the way that It takes a teenage boy, young adult, to a time he's completely unfamiliar with, but not necessarily advanced, but sort of a post-apocalyptic, but you're in a time that is more akin to cavemen than it is, which it's also playing with the idea of like, well, we could be the extinct advanced civilization at one point. um
Yeah.
and how do we bring ourselves out of that? And this, this boy is maybe one that could be, helping these hunter gatherer type people move to the next stage, and help bring some more humanity to them. uh it's something that I've been writing it for a little bit, and I've written a lot of fluff that I'm trying to sift through right now, um, and kind of give the story a little bit more direction. But and like, seriously, this is how much I love time travel, is that I like writing about it a lot.
Me
'Cause
too.
it's not easy either, because you don't want, like, and it sounds like you and I are on the same page here. Like, you don't want to fall into that, um like something like, I keep saying, like, going back to Outer Range. You don't want to have all these questions and not have your audience understand why there's time travel, or how it works. You don't want to reveal everything, but you want it to be cohesive enough to not take them completely out of it. Like, oh, why is that guy there all of a sudden? Like, what, oh, you can just jump in and out of this thing with no consequences. Like, what, you don't want to fall into that. But
Yeah,
it's so much fun to play with.
it is. That's why I love writing time travel. My first story that I wrote, that I've got to find where it is, because I could probably do another rewrite now that I think about it. Yeah, so it's essentially, there's 6 people that wake up in a room in a small town. And you slowly learn that every single one of them is from a different time period.
Oh, weird.
Um, it looks like it's Midwest, around the Wild West sort of times, the town that they're in.
Mhm.
But there's LED signs, and there's, taps. So there's things from different parts of the technology. There's rotary phones. So all things that don't mash together well in a sort of thing, and they're essentially trapped in this town.
Mhm.
Um,
That's cool.
they leave the town, borders, and then they wake up in their beds the next morning. Every morning they wake up at 6 a.m. in their beds, and they're
Mm.
trying to figure out whether it's a time loop, whether it's a, like, one character's trying to say that it's aliens, and the guys turn around and going, "Well, you mean like what? Like Mexicans?" He's like, "No, aliens are like outer space." He said, "What's outer space?" Like, he had no concept of outer space.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
One of them is a doctor who is the most cynical when it comes to any sort of time travel or any sort of science fiction, because he's a doctor in the 16th century.
Oh,
He's that space between being like a priest and a physician, and it's how these people have got to do tasks and just complete different things, and you've got to learn together about, one, what's going on, why why is it here, what's happening. Um, yeah, it was just a fun little exercise to try and write certain things, because I had to put myself in the situation. All right, if I'm in here and I know that I can't get out there, I'm throwing a rope out there. I'm doing, you know,
yeah.
everything that if this was a game, I would do to try and break it. And I'm getting certain characters that are doing that, because one of the characters is a professional gamer,
Okay.
which is a real fun thing to talk to the plague doctor about,
That is
because he wouldn't
cool.
understand the concept. Wouldn't Doesn't even understand the concept of electricity yet.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's that's very interesting. I like that. I want to
And that's
read
using
that.
time travel as not as the premise, but as the device. the narrative device to bring people together.
There's oh man, I wrote a story not, I don't know, maybe probably 3 or 4 years ago now. Again, time travel, and it was centering around what was it not CERN. Is it CERN? No, HARP.
Yep.
I'm thinking,
Okay, the other one.
so the weather, it's all the weather manipulation stuff that people. So essentially, this guy goes and he starts working there, and he believes he's doing like weather, like essentially a glorified weatherman is what he believes he's doing, looking over not CERN, King, but yeah, he thinks he's looking over weather predicting software and helping mitigate large disasters. And but what he ends up finding is that he's watching I forget how I did it exactly, but he realizes that these are actually happening, not just predictive, but like they're actual, well, I guess they're predictive, but they're actually targeting these things around the world, these big weather events.
Similar to like the Nowhere, the Nicolas Cage one.
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is something, I don't remember what. I have to go back. It's been so long since I wrote it, but something happens with the whole station, and it goes into like critical, like this critical meltdown, if you will. But what it does is it opens up essentially a portal, like back in time, transporting him to the very, very beginning of time, is what ends up happening. And it.
Oh, okay.
I won't spoil the ending of it, and I'll let you read it sometime because I do want to go back and mess with it. But it's a really interesting twist to how it all ends, and one that I don't know if I love the ending, but it was an idea. I started with the ending idea, and I kind of worked backwards.
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times.
But no,
so my I'm going to say my most popular story, which for people that have read it have really liked it. So, so it's essentially a guy finds a dead body, and works out through a bunch of random events that this guy has a DNA familiarity to him. They thought he stuffed up the crime scene when he went and found the body because his DNA was all over the place, but it turns out that the guy has the same DNA as him. So like this is a DNA match to you, but it's like it's your twin brother, but 60 years older or 40 years older, sort of thing. And the time travel in this is essentially the technology exists, but it exists like AI does now. Mm-hmm. So we have a bunch of AI that's under AI, but we have large language models. We have data sets. We have different models. That's what time travel is like in the future. There's different ways to time travel, and each of them has their own consequences. So the most popular one that they do is the one that requires the most amount of energy. But what it does is it just pricks a tiny hole in the space-time continuum, sort of thing. So it allows for nice and easy travel. Mm-hmm. These religious type, I'm calling them religious, but they're not exactly religious. They're essentially time zealots. They want to correct the timeline. They want time to go back to the way things were because every little change they've noted. But the way in which they do it, they essentially do it like a brute force attack through it. So what happens is when they do that, it's actually damaging time. So events aren't just changing the moment that it's happening. It's actually changing events in the past as well. Ooh. So they're like, say for instance, they brute force their way 2 days before your birthday, mm-hmm. and your birthday would normally go off without a hitch, but you end up with a flat tire 2 days early, which never happened. So it actually affects the things in the past by doing it. It's like how I essentially got a physics professor to describe what I was talking about. It's like a river. The river is it's a thin river that's always flowing. If you throw a pin into it, it doesn't change the direction of the river. But if you throw a big rock in it, it splashes not just forward but backwards as well. Time remnants and time things change like that.
Interesting.
And the closer that you are to that epicenter, the bigger the change is. So he does
Interesting.
he does an experiment where he proves something happens. I can't tell you what it is because it's a key part of the storyline. But he changes an event, and the people who were closest to him when it happens, because he did it the right way, they see it how it always was. But the person who was across the other side of the room, who's further away from the epicenter of the change, remembers the one that happened in the past.
Oh, weird. That's
Yeah.
wild.
So, but
That's
yeah,
yeah.
it all stems from the old version of him going back and brute forcing his way into the past, which completely changes everything, which is causing a huge havoc because it was around the time that time travel started to being invented, and it's actually affected the ability of time travel to work properly, and that's why the zealots are coming in. That's why everything's going all haywire. And yeah, it's only a short story, but it's a good one.
That is really cool. That I was gonna ask, like, what do you think the implications of time travel would be, like on like a consumer level? You know, like I think time travel as it's illustrated in stories is always at like at a very like high level. Only one or two people are messing with it. um but like, I mean, just think of the air traffic controllers that you need to in order to
Hmm.
fly from point A to point B. Now imagine that very same thing. Like, would you need something to, would you need a group to navigate time in the same way? We're like, oh, hey, you don't want to cross paths with someone, or like, you know what I mean? Like, if there's too many people going in the past, how could that affect things? I don't know. Like,
There is one way in which that could work. If you subscribe to the theory of things that have already happened, or you can control, if you send someone back in time and you have the ability to one monitor them in their time, you would already know whether they went back and changed. And if they went back, if they were going to change something in the past, then you just don't let them go. Just like, no, you've been flagged. We already know you're going to change something in the past because
right?
you've done it. So if
Huh?
there's a way if there's a way that would be the only way that I could see it doing it. But like, you got to understand, in the 80s, a flat screen TV was considered the height of opulence.
Yeah.
Now you can get two for one at
Yeah.
every trailer has one now.
Yeah.
So like, people will find a way of making things cheaper and everything, depending on the type of time travel it is. If we have a time travel that has no consequences to our current timeline, then everyone's going to do it.
It's
Everyone's
hard.
going to experience what it's like to go back, win the $50 billion lottery, and live a year out there. Maybe you've got to have some sort of device that tethers you you to to our time. Like, if you don't have it, let's just say it's a wristband or something.
Yeah.
That certain thing, if you don't have that, then your body gets transported back, or you die, or whatever it is. That would be the only way that they'd be able to control anything like that.
Yeah, like, and it's funny to bring it back to the sliders show. I wonder, I had mentioned earlier, like the idea of like AI finding points in time that it recognizes in order to transport you there. So I wonder if, like, in sliders, the device essentially malfunctions because they don't allow the timer to go down all the way. So their slides become random. Um,
Yep.
and I wonder if that would be necessary. Like, you would absolutely need it. Otherwise, you would just get lost in time if you didn't have something to sort of ground you to your your place in space time. Um,
Yep.
oh
Because
man,
fundamentally you would be different. Like, they would be on a molecular level. That'd
right.
be, yeah.
Well, and
Um
therein lies the whole like Miles Morales thing. Like, these alternate universes you can't exist in because your molecules can't stay together, so you start like essentially coming undone. Oh man, it's wild. Like there's so many ways that these stories can be written in so many like that's why time travel is so freaking cool. And like there's so many variations of using it. Like you said, like from Interstellar to The Lake House to all these movies and stuff that we've listened, even Final Destination, something like that, is like it's not explicitly time travel, but it's still,
but
you're
it could
still,
be.
yeah, it totally could be. And again, it's like another reason why art is so good. Like I can interpret this in so many different ways. And it might not be that, but it doesn't matter because like at the end of the day, it very well could be. And it doesn't ruin the experience if it's not that, right?
Yep, 100%.
Man. What did King say? King said, he said, I wrote a few cringe micro fictions, short stories a few years back when I was researching Kuru Prions disease. Oh, I don't even know what that is. There were chain stories with a demonic manifestation causing people to become cannibals. No time travel in those, but I did go back and forth in different time periods. That's always fun too to tell a concurrent story, across different time periods. And that's something that I thought I might do in mine is have him living in a time that he's fish out of water, but you would go back and see different points in his past or in modern day of lessons he was learning and things that he might apply to his journey in his his fish out of water scenario. And then he says, if we
Yeah,
go
that's
into the
also
past, oh,
it's also a cool mental activity to write a short story and then rewrite that short story, but set it in a different time period.
yeah, yep,
You know, if
hmm
you've got a character that needs to get something done, or but it can't work because it's like, damn, everyone will have security cameras and that wouldn't work, but that would be cool. It's like, okay, it's now set in the 70s. Can I still make it work?
yep. Um, he said, if we go in the past, we're still going into the future. That's how I prefer to understand time travel.
Yeah, it's our future, but it is the past of that. Like everything that technically everything that we perceive is our present,
Right.
even if we do go into the future.
Yeah. Oh man. I just love time travel. It's so incredibly fun. Um and again, I think and that's where like the whole multiverse thing, if we just go like the one step further, like the multiverse thing, if there's rules, can be a fun thing to experiment with. But it just make a universe that just can pull things without any sort of consequence from other areas, it just makes everything sort of like, well, it doesn't really matter because then, well, Iron Man's dead. Well, we could just snatch him from another universe and there he is. But
Yeah,
what are the consequences of that? Again, I think that Into the Spider-Verse delves into that, in that, well, they can't stay there. Like, sure, maybe for a little bit, but they couldn't stay there and just have a super spider team. You would need to figure out how to, you know, and that's something that they start going into with the second one. With Miles essentially being the fish out of water in his own universe at that point. Um, or, because the spider is from a different universe, then he
yep.
essentially becomes. Um, so yeah, there's so many things, and it could, like I said, it could work. I don't know if there's any way to redeem the stuff that we're talking about with like MCU or even DC kind of doing the same thing. Like, is there any way to fix it all? I mean, sure.
Well, once they exhaust the multiverse, and they've only got one more step, and that's the omniverse.
Right.
So that means DC versus Marvel. That means comic book characters versus comic book characters. And then when you get past that, you get which is now a different word, the metaverse. But the metaverse is anything versus anything with anything.
Right.
So any fiction. So old Shakespeare. Like the closest thing that you get to like an omniverse sort of things is games like Wreck-It Ralph.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially like an omniverse style movie.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what game. It's just games.
Right.
But
even
they're
that-
all essentially from the one type of universe as well.
Right.
That's the thing.
Well, that one works so well too because, like, there's, I mean, the consequences of being in a different game, right? Like, sure, they're all part of this thing. They're all part of the arcade, and they can mingle and stuff, and they can go to other games. But staying in those games, if they ever got corrupted or got the plug pulled, like, you're gone. You don't respawn, and those are the consequences for being intermingling. It's like, sure, you can, but in your own game, you'll respawn, you'll come back. But if you're a part of this other one, you're not going anywhere, and that is what makes it so fun. And there's stakes, as small as it might seem. There's always a chance, like Ralph being over in Vanellope's game. Like, there's always a chance that he might not come back, or vice versa, and that just kind of keeps you even just a little on the edge of your seat, be like, oh no, like,
Well, if it was me writing that, I would add one extra element to it. I wouldn't let any of the new futuristic games come across to the other one because they're using up all the RAM. The world starts to deteriorate because all the RAM's going in there to,
That's a good point. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
I'm gonna have to head off, buddy.
Yeah, no, I know that's fine. I know you're battling your stuff, and I think this is a great place to stop. What you got anything you want to talk about before we head out? You got anything coming up people should check out?
Just all the full Aussie shows, and there's this show called the Midweek Hump. I'm not sure if you heard about it. It's on a different channel to this one, but yeah, you might like it.
Well, cool, brother. I might hang on here for another minute or so, but I'll let you get out of here. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Break. It's been fun. I want to keep doing these. Hopefully you're down.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the chat, and yeah, take it easy.
All right, man. Be good. Guys, I'm going to hang out for a little bit here, and then in about 10 minutes, I'm going to switch over to Rumble and YouTube Gaming on my other channel and play some more Dark Souls 2. But I want to thank you for those who came tonight and hit the like button and who've been talking. Jack King, Meta, we had Wookie Be Bad earlier, and Funny Pump. Really appreciate you guys being a part of this discussion, because these are some of the topics that I do want to cover and get into, because they're just fun. They're not the perpetual, like, oh, I gotta hate this. You talk about things that we genuinely like, for like again, time travel is a fun storytelling device, and it's used in so many different ways, and I'm hoping that some people can get a few things out of this and maybe find something that they want to watch, or something they can revisit or look at in a different way. You guys can go back and watch Inception in a totally different way, or you can go back or go and watch The Lake House for the first time with your loved one for a little rom-com action, for a romantic drama, or a romance. I don't even know. Oh my god. No, thanks, guys. If you guys want to watch me get really frustrated on Dark Souls 2, I'm going to go over to my gaming channel here in just a minute and play some of that. I'll also be on Rumble, because Rumble killed it today, apparently. That stream, like, fired off. And I guess I crossed the, like, midnight threshold, so I can do another live stream over there technically today. So yeah, if you guys want to go over there and watch me and watch me get angry at games, let me know. Thank you, Metastep. Thank you, King. Never seen The Lake House? You spelled scene wrong, by the way. It was pretty good. Yeah, it was good. It was good times. All right. You got 2 dubs? That a boy? Nice. All right, I'm out of here. We'll see you guys next time. Roll those credits. Thank you guys for all your support. No, it's just my regular channel on Rumble and my gaming channel on YouTube. So y'all be good. I'll see you over there in just a few minutes, like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Okay. Toodles.
Nice.